7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. On Spectrum, tonight, the East African Legislative Assembly saga. Will the NRM and the opposition end this standoff? Before Parliament was adjourned yesterday, the Speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, directed the Leader of Government Business and the Leader of Opposition to agree on how the 9 slots to the East African Legislative Assembly will be shared, saying she will not postpone the May 30th elections. She also constituted a bipartisan 20-member committee of MPs to scrutinize the nomination papers of different candidates to ensure that they conform to the guidelines of electing East African Legislative Assembly or EALA members. The NRM has already conducted its primaries, selecting 6 individuals, but the chairman of the party's youth league has petitioned the party challenging the nomination process. On Friday last week, the NRM side unilaterally adopted new rules for electing EALA members after the opposition walked out in protest. The center of controversy is on how the 9 slots should be shared after the East African Court of Justice ruled that all political parties, shades of opinion, and special interest groups in the Ugandan parliament must be reflected. In the rules adopted by the NRM, it was expressly stated that the election of the EALA members will be determined through consensus, but where that fails, a vote would be taken. The opposition thinks this is a ploy by the NRM to bulldoze the entire process using their numerical strength. The opposition has boycotted the process and is seeking an injunction and also an interpretation from the ESCJ, that's the Court of Justice, on whether the decision taken by the NRM conforms to the East African Community Treaty. This process has, however, been delayed because Parliament is yet to release details of the proceedings of all the NRM's sittings. So tonight we ask, how fundamental is the disagreement between the opposition and the NRM over these elections? And will the two settle these matters amicably as directed by the Speaker? Also, we'll ask the question, how transparent and democratic is the process of electing EALA members? And is it not possible to carry out adult suffrage? Our guests tonight, Honorable Paul Mwiru, Jinja Municipality East MP, coming from the Forum for Democratic Change Party. You're most welcome, Honorable Mwiru.
Thank you.
We also expect to be joined by Mr. Opoka Okumu, a contestant for the EALA Parliament, and we were expecting to be joined by Mr. Denis Namara, chairman of the NRM Youth League, who took part in the primaries, but he opted out of this show at the last minute. Honorable Mwiru, what is the root of the disagreements that we see over these EALA seats?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, listeners. The root of this conflict over EALA stems just far back when we were dealing with amendment of our rules of procedure. There was a problem initially where Rule 11 of our rules of procedure actually was limiting people from participating within these elections who are not coming from political parties. Honorable Jacob Olanya, as of then, challenged that rule and was declared to be in conflict with Article 50 of the treaty. When we were amending our rules of procedure as Parliament, we had to amend Rule 11 because it had been declared to be in conflict with the East African Treaty. When it came to, I was in Parliament, when it came to amending Rule 11, there was a divergence of opinion over what is the meaning of Article 50 of the treaty. What does Article 50 of the treaty say? Article 50 says that members of the East African Legislative Assembly shall be elected not from the Parliament of Uganda, of that assembly. Then it continues to say that we shall not from those members, non-members representing the various political parties represented in the National Assembly in as feasible and as much as feasible as possible. I was of the view that in the current circumstances, it is feasible that each political party can be represented in the East African Legislative Assembly. The same article of the treaty proceeded to talk about other talked about shades of opinion and other special interest groups. My point of contention was from the legal point of view. I was saying the treaty is very clear. And when we are interpreting treaty and statutes, we say that where a statute is clear and unambiguous, you give the literal meaning irrespective of the consequence of that particular section or clause of the statute. What our colleagues were actually looked at as of then, they were looking at the consequence. And actually they try to jump to the type of interpretation that, look, yes, they talk about political parties, but it also talks about shades of opinion and other special interest groups. We said, look, when you are interpreting the rules of certain interpretation, which all lawyers know, inclusive of the Attorney General, there is what we call the Ejusdem Generis rule, that when you are interpreting, the words which come first have a meaning similar to that one of the last word. Meaning that the first word interprets the last word. When that matter came up, there was a thorough debate. We carried the day because we used a lot of logic. The Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda made a ruling that the Attorney General of Uganda frames up a question and refers to the East African Court of Justice for purposes of guide and interpretation on what is the meaning of Article 50. Actually, that was not done. When this matter came back to the floor of Parliament, I rose and said, look, we cannot proceed with this matter because the Right Honourable Speaker, Honourable Kadaga, said that before we proceed with these rules, we need the East African Court of Justice to pronounce itself on the meaning, on the interpretation of Article 50. That's why we adjourned Parliament and deferred the rules. Actually, it was not that we deferred the rules because of the Mbide case. No. The Attorney General had his own view of Article 50. We had a corrective view of Article 50. So the Speaker made the ruling. Actually, as a matter of procedure, I said, look, we cannot continue to deal with these rules. Before morning, did the Attorney General travel to Arusha? If he did not go, why? Because as he came back, actually I was very much shocked by our Attorney General that when we were in the Parliament, he was very hesitant to pronounce until we forced that, look, we want the Attorney General of this country to come up and give what is his opinion. When he gave an opinion that actually, in as far as is concerned, the treaty talks of participation, not representation. Yet this is very clear in the treaty. As if that was not enough, when we debated so much about this, our logic seemed to have carried the day. The government suggested that there should be a team comprised of the opposition and the government. Happened to have been privileged to have been party to those deliberations. When we went in the meeting, actually the first day, we extensively discussed and actually we all agreed that the treaty, the way it is, actually it gives every political party a chance to be represented in the East African Legislative Assembly for two reasons. That one, the East African Legislative Assembly is not about governments in power. Otherwise, it would have asked for representatives. And we made it very clear that at the East African Legislative Assembly, the Attorney General, there's a Minister of East Africa, and there's also a State Minister. Or the government is represented by 3 people. That meant that actually, when we talk about political parties, there is a rationale. We're looking at party platforms. Because a party like CP, JERA, FDC, DP, and APC have party platforms. It's about talking about Uganda. How do these political parties' interests, how must they be represented at the East African community? That's what we are saying.
All right.
The first time we met with our colleagues,
yes,
actually in the words of the Prime Minister, I said, look, we have locked up in this room. We cannot actually say that we have accepted your demands or not. We need to go to the NRM caucus. We caucus, then we come up with a position as to what is our position as NRM. When they turned up the following day, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, actually, we asked him, we gave our report. We told the meeting that actually, in as far as the opposition is concerned, we said we go by the treaty. The treaty talks of the representation of every political party represented in the House, and so be it. Two, we said that when we talk about the remaining slots, because we made it very clear to him that it's not in dispute that each party must be represented. And we had agreed unanimously amongst ourselves that the independents, as a shade of opinion, should be represented. That left us with 2 slots,
Yes.
2 positions.
Yes.
So we suggested to them that let FDC as the official position as per Article 82A of the Constitution. Then the government NRM takes one as the party in power. We asked him, what is your report? He told us in 3 statements that we first deal with the rules, then we shall deal with the representation in EALA after we have made the rules. We said, look, these rules, that what each party, the representation of each party determines what slots do other political parties will have at the assembly.
Yes.
We disagreed and actually went back to Parliament. When we went back to Parliament, we moved an amendment, a very straightforward amendment, that each political party should be represented in the East African Legislative Assembly as per Article 50 of the treaty. They rejected that amendment. Now, when they did so, the leader of opposition stood on the floor of Parliament and said, look, we cannot be party to violating the treaty because Article 50 is very clear. But now, having said that, then what is the problem?
Yes.
Because the only problem we are having is simple.
Yes.
It is the interpretation of Article 50. We are actually before, if anybody came and said that never happened, I would
basically saying Article 50, you're interpreting, your pedantic interpretation is that parties, it is the political parties to be represented, not necessarily shades of opinion.
Actually, no. It is actually the wording of the article starts to say that each political party represented in the House should get a slot.
That excludes non-political actors. People are not affiliated.
That is fact. Actually,
and people are outside of Parliament.
Actually, the wording of the treaty coaches it in mandatory terms.
Yes.
And says that each political party shall be represented.
So we're ruling out people who are not in Parliament. We're ruling out people who don't have political parties. That's completely out from your pedantic interpretation.
Actually, from even the setting of however much we opted out as the opposition, even what they are doing, they require each. If you come and say, look, I'm from UPC,
yes,
they require a signature of the Secretary General of the party.
So it has to be, you have to be endorsed by a
party. You have to be endorsed by a party because you present the party in the House.
All right, but I mean, how would you have it playing out? CP, which has 1 seat, having the same level of representation as the NRM with 260 members. Yeah, it's rules of natural justice.
Actually, the biggest problem we have been having and going through, what even our colleagues have been having, actually, they had thought that NRM is donating positions to other people. That's not it. The law says every political party represented in the House. If it did not wish to look at every political party represented in the House, it would have expressly stated so. And maybe it would have said that each political party with more than 10 members of Parliament. For instance, when you look at how Commonwealth funds in Parliament in the UK, they're based on the number of members of Parliament.
Yes.
When they were making the treaty, they did not base on the number of members of Parliament, and they referred on political parties represented in the House, and they said it is mandatory.
They left it broad.
Yeah, they said it is mandatory. However, they proceeded to qualify it by saying in as much as feasible, meaning that if there are 20 political parties in the House and their name slots, so it will not be feasible to be represented. But in our situation as of now,
you have less than 9 parties.
There are 9 slots, there are 6 political parties, so it is feasible.
Okay.
Yes.
Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. The EALA saga. EALA is the East African Legislative Assembly. There's a saga over the elections of representatives. 9 slots, many parties, some big, some small. The question is, will the NRM and the opposition end the standoff? Our guest tonight, Honorable Paul Mwiru, Jinja Municipality East MP, coming from the FDC party. We're right now joined by Mr. Chris Opoka Okumu, contestant for the EALA. You're most welcome, Mr. Chris Okumu. He's online. We expect Mr. Okumu to walk in here and talk to us. But Mr. Denis Namara, chairman of the NRM Youth League, who took part in the primaries, is online right now. Mr. Namara, good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
What's your complaint about your party has chosen people and now you're disturbing, you're bothering them? Why are you doing that?
I'm actually not bothering them. Of course, we had the elections for the members of Parliament of the EALA in NRM, and we were looking majorly at how we can balance different political political parties, difference of opinion, balancing the specialist group, and
Well, but you can't say you have different shades of opinion inside of the NRM. We all know it's only one color, yellow.
Maybe you need to read the treaty verbatim.
Because you can't say you have different shades of opinion within the NRM. You all sing one song.
yeah, of course, NRM being the biggest.
Well, but Mr. Namara, but you can't have 6 people coming from the NRM. That's mostly very unfair. You could take 4, FDC 2, and then the others can share the 3. The other 3. What's wrong with that?
Information, Mr. Namara.
So you've decided to bulldoze this whole thing. Numerical strength. You bulldoze it all.
No, it's not about it.
Okay, so basically you can have the other parties represent you. The NRM can pull out of its own magnanimity and have CP have maybe 4 people. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, because if you're saying that CP, which has one part of you, don't have the same clothes.
Well, you could have 4, since you say different shades and you are being magnanimous. You could do that. NRM pulls out.
What you see, they're bringing, there are 3 women who are coming. So The issue of women is catered for.
Well, all right.
If they come from the parliament, that issue of not connecting, which is talking about Jinja, the issue of women will be handled because the NRM will vote to declare women.
Have you sorted out your differences with the Secretary General? You agreed on the way things went. You support the 6 candidates. You don't complain anymore.
No, I'm not complaining anymore. I'm supporting the 6 candidates.
All right, we've just been joined. All right, we've just been joined by Mr. Chris, Mr. Denis Namara. Please do stay with us on the line. We'll get back to you at some stage. Mr. Chris Opoka Okumu, also Contestant, has just joined us in the studio. You're most welcome, Mr. Okumu.
Thank you.
What's your view on this whole thing? NRM 6, is that fair?
It is really not the question of fairness the question of NRM having 6 or not. The issue is, I think, if you look at the treaty, clearly Article 50 talks of representation. The National Assembly of each partner state shall elect not from among its members.
Yes.
9 members of the Assembly who shall represent as much as it is feasible the various political parties represented in the National Assembly. So you start with that. Is it feasible to elect the various political parties represented in Parliament? Yes, because the slot is for 9 and the 6 political parties are represented in Parliament. Therefore, 9 can accommodate 6. And I've had my friend argue about the NRM's number. The treaty doesn't mention.
It doesn't mention number. It's generally broad. It says the local parliament can determine. And the NRM, what's your best? How would you split it if you had to split it?
Well, if I had to split it, I would have given the political parties represented in Parliament 1-1-1.
Yes.
First, and
whatever remains, you give it to the NRM.
That's right.
And the NRM will complain. You can't give CP 1 seat. They have only 1 MP, and then the NRM has 206.
You see that the shade of political opinion represented by CP is completely different. They talk about environment. They talk about federalism and so forth. NRM has got a multi-ideological thing. We don't know what the multi-ideological thing is about. So this is a very important thing. In Buganda here, you have got very strong issue about federalism. And the issue about environment, as we are going more and more in industrialization, is very important to take into account. So that is the way I would split it. Give the other parties 1-1-1 and let the NRM take the rest.
All right. I mean, obviously you have a strong view there. But let's try to look forward a little bit. How do you think it's likely to end?
I really, it is very difficult to guess what the court is going to say. I understand that people will file, a case in the East African Court of Justice. But in the courts, it's like rolling the dice. You don't know what the court is going to decide. There's no lawyer. I'm a lawyer myself who can say with certainty this is what the court is going to say. Today was supposed to be the last day of nomination. And
you haven't agreed.
We haven't agreed. On our part, after seeing that the other opposition party, the Democratic Party, had nominated, we also decided to nominate. And I'm happy to say that I've been nominated
for UPC.
For UPC. So, but it's difficult to know what the court is doing. Supposing the court says, "Look, well, did you meet the deadline that had been presented?
Right.
Have people been nominated?"
Okay.
You'd lose out. See, in court, you have got to do certain things
according to the
and then follow the legal process.
Right. Listeners, this is Spectrum. I'll go for it. But maybe before we go for the break, Mr. Namara, let's clear one fact here. We've heard that you've complained that the process did not cater for the youth. You lost by just 1 vote to Margaret Ziwa Nantongo. You want the election to be nullified. Have you changed your mind over that?
Thank you so much, my brother. I must say,
Given up.
Aspects that I wanted to bring it with due respect to my brother Mwiru.
No, we have to go back. Have you given up? Have you changed your mind? You've another 6. You put your finger there.
Yeah, no. There's no petition, so there's nothing.
There's no petition. You are going to go on with other things. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going for a break. We'll be back. This is Spectrum.
John, Mike, and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Hear the voices and the sounds of Africa. One love, one spirit, one heart in Africa. See the beautiful sunset of Africa.
Celebrate Africa with one rate, one Africa from Airtel. Call across all Africa at a flat rate of only 10 shillings per second. That's right, 10 shillings per second all day, all night. And stand a chance to win a fully paid trip for two to Mombasa every week. Another reason to celebrate Africa in proud association with Fly 540 Airlines and Serena Hotels. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back to Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. The EALA saga. While will the NRM and the opposition end the standoff? The EALA stands for the East African Legislative Assembly. Our guests tonight, Honorable Paul Mwiru, Jinja Municipality East MP, also coming from the FDC, that's the Forum for Democratic Change Party, Mr. Chris Opoka Okumu, contestant for the EALA from the Uganda People's Congress, and Mr. Denis Namara, chairman of the NRM Youth League, who took part in the primaries. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Let's come back to Mr. Namara. Very, very clear. Earlier you told journalists that you had petitioned the NRM party. Have you withdrawn that petition?
Actually, I have not petitioned the NRM party.
You told journalists something like that today.
Yeah, when I told them, we were thinking, we were looking at...
You're going around in circles, Mr. Namara. Would you like to tell the truth tonight? Would you like to tell us the truth tonight?
Yeah, we are not petitioned the NRM party.
It is you. It is not you as a
we are not petitioned the NRM party. But what we are saying is that there should not be represented.
All right. Okay. All right. Colored truth. All right. Let's accept your colored truth tonight. Honorable Paul Mwiru, how is this going to end? Talk to us about that.
Well, for us as a Forum for Democratic Change, I think let me make this very clearly. This was not about slots as FDC, because we are the official position as per Article 82A of the Constitution. Actually, at one stage of the negotiation, NRM offered to give us 2 slots. We take the 2,
yes,
and we leave other parties out. And of course we said
wanted
no.
to bribe you.
Yes, and actually we said, look, we are about the treaty. It's not about these slots. Because actually we would have lost our main agenda as a political party, because we would have acted contrary to the treaty. However, you have asked a very good challenge, a very good question, that what are the challenges out of this? For us, we are saying as a party, we are going to court. We are saying, look, these people have violated the treaty. And we think as a result, we shall get an injunction to stop the process from going on. We have got some challenges, of course. We have asked for the parliamentary record, parliamentary hazard.
The hazard.
Up to now, we have not got it. We have been going to circles. We have been going into circles. They promised by today evening they will have given them to us. They have not. So in other words, what are we saying? That when we challenge this process, of course, the Ugandan team will not be constituted to be in Arusha.
Yes.
And as a result, of course, we may not participate. We may not start at the same time, because by the time we shall sort out ourselves, the other countries will have convened and actually elected the speaker. So we only jeopardize our own chances of even getting the speaker. Like I've heard from my colleague here of UP saying that actually for them they went and nominated.
Yes.
Of course, as we are moving in this direction, of course, that also raises a very serious challenge to our petition.
Yes.
Because we sat as political parties, they were represented, and we took a position. They negated the position, went ahead and then had their candidates nominated. But you see, that notwithstanding doesn't affect our vision. Because if it was about people getting jobs, people going there, we would have taken the two. But we are saying we are the official position.
Under the principles.
Under the principle. What are the principles? Actually, if it's about getting merely people getting jobs, we would have taken the two.
Boxes.
Yeah, but you see, at the end of the day, we are saying this is not about people being there.
Right.
Like my brother Namara actually was very interesting. He talked about the number, about that. Actually, when you look the cases which the debate, which actually adjudicated the question of numbers, said, look, numbers don't matter. What is that which matters?
Yes.
They look at political parties because they have a platform. Because if you go as an individual, actually, like his interpretation is flawed. Because how dare do you say that you see we have taken the women, we have taken into because other
many of these arguments were difficult to follow.
Yes.
Mr. Opoka, do you think we would have solved a big problem if we had this by a universal adult suffrage? Some people have said it would work.
I do not think that it would work.
It would be expensive and
it would be expensive. Just elect 9 people and having the universal adult suffrage. I think it would be expensive, and I think the framers of the treaty, were wise enough to say, look, let the parliament, which is elected by the people, the members of parliament elected by the people of Uganda, let them be the ones to do it.
Yes.
To lessen the expense, and it would be too expensive in my view. And the practice, all over is that it's an electoral college.
Give us a parallel from other countries. They already have their members there, the other 4 countries.
Well, I think in fact the first people to bring the issue of political representation, political parties fairly being represented was Kenya. It was a case of which was brought by the Secretary General of ODM, okay, which in 2005 was brought in 2005. Actually stopped Kenyans from going into EALA until they could have better representation of members from the political parties which are in Parliament of Kenya. So our colleagues here in Uganda, the ruling party should have considered that. But as the case, the point being brought by my brother Paul Mwiru, I think this is not a question about the fact that UPC went nominated. It's not about having jobs. The issue was, I know that the political parties agreed yesterday. I think they signed, the opposition political parties. But then afterwards, you find Democratic Party had nominated. This afternoon it was there, including the person who brought the case in the East Africa Court of Justice. Yes. So, what did it mean to UPC? It means that already the agreement has been broken. It has already, even one party to an agreement having broken it,
you had to move forward.
It has been undermined.
Right.
So this is the reason why
you could not wait.
The cabinet of UPC party and the caucus of UPC decided that no, they to nominate.
Honorable Paul, so for you, you're not going to do it. You're going to wait. You're not going to go the UPC way.
But just to add that UPC, from what I've heard, will still join with the colleagues as far as the case is concerned.
Right.
To have fair representation. Yes, I mean.
But you're ticking 2 boxes.
Yes. Yes, that's why I said that going to court is like rolling the dice.
Yes.
It's a chance. Okay? There's no certainty that the court is going to rule this way.
You want to spread your risks.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Mwiru. One question is actually lingers into my mind. Of course, like I agree with what my colleague is telling me, that you see, when we are taking decision as the opposition, however much the law recognizes FDC as the official position, we don't sit at National Assembly and take decisions.
Yes.
We hold caucus meetings as the opposition and take decisions
together with other parties.
That's collective responsibility. What would have been my expectation? That actually, if UPC or DP was taking a different position, they ought to have put us on the same page. Of course, that was not done.
Or they should have sent
of course, okay, NSF, okay, I'm very new about this type of politics. Actually, I've just joined parliament, and actually I knew people in politics, so like business people, that actually take a decision. That's the decision.
And you
but of course, this has been taken me
on the job.
Yes, of course, this has taken me as yellow. Of course, it may be very difficult for me to adjust to that type of politics. However, the point I'm trying to make, that you see, does this affect our decision,
yes,
our chance? I'm saying no, it does not. For reason, because what my brother is saying, we would have done the same. If this would have taken 2 slots, then accompany these people to EALA for court to pronounce itself on the meaning of the treaty.
Yes.
So when he says each party should get, then we would have maybe advocated that maybe they should also get one.
All right. You are in parliament. You are leader of opposition and leader of government business who are ordered by parliament speaker to meet and agree on this. Do you have any news on that?
Actually, very interesting. As I was entering parliament, I met my brother, the senior colleague, Honorable Migereko, and said, look, we are supposed to meet. You're supposed to participate in this. Because you see, you are supposed to take your 2, and then we take our 6 and then the 1. You know, they made the 6, and then they also go by for numbers, and they also take the 1.
Another one. They wanted 7.
Of course, yes, we told them, look, yes, they have ordered that, but in as long as you only want this process to give you, just to do damage control, because actually the spirit to which we are moving to EALA as Ugandans is that even if an NRM person was in EALA, he was talking as a Ugandan. We're not looking at parties. But the other question would be that with this spirit, which our colleagues have shown us,
you're being suspicious, right?
When we go now to EALA, assuming we collected this earlier, and one of them offered himself for speakership, would he have our vote? That lingers into our mind. Because see, actually they are in a winner-take-all situation. So even these statements they are making, actually, they're just public statements.
They undermine their
this whole thing can be solved by one issue. If today you call the Speaker of Parliament, or the Prime Minister of Uganda, or the Attorney General, and ask him that before we debate this, the Speaker of Parliament made a ruling on the floor in the House,
yes,
that before we proceed with this matter, let the Attorney General of Uganda travel to Arusha, frame a question for court's guidance.
Yes.
Did he travel to Arusha? Did he come back? They knew, they later sat and discussed, and they knew that the article, the way it is,
yes,
it gives the opposition slots. So how do we manipulate so that we deny them a chance? That's what we have engaged in as of now. Because I was shocked, actually. I think it was Radio 1. It was playing the voice of the Attorney General, giving a position. Yet when we were in this negotiation, I was there. He didn't say anything.
Mr. Opoka, how do you ride over this yellow cloud of smoke?
I just want to correct one impression by Mr. Mwiru that if the UPs was changed his mind, he should inform them. I'm sure that I cannot talk on behalf of the caucus or the UPs leadership. I'm sure they were in touch with your colleagues. You may not be a top leader of the party, but I'm sure they were in touch, because that's how things are done. They would have informed. They were not informed. Because I was a secretary. I was a secretary general of UPC before, and I know that is how things are done when they're in a corporation.
That is not correct.
All right. So how do you ride over this cloud? How do we go over it? You have a position divided. The NRM is bulldozing.
I think if I were to suggest, I would suggest that you see, we are trying to create a good political climate in Uganda itself. I would think that my NRM colleagues, our NRM colleagues, should really do a lot of soul searching. You need to create good atmosphere for governance. That's why when we had IPOD, the Interparty Organization for Dialogue,
yes,
it became so useful and became good that before the 2011 elections, we were able to pass, to make recommendations with the participation of NRM, of laws, with the amendment of electoral laws. It was quite useful. So we really need to have a soul searching. I think the NRM should really rethink this position, and maybe I would suggest that since our colleagues have not nominated, an extension of time is given for FDC to nominate.
You think they should nominate?
I think they should.
Because the NRM could be taking advantage of your own disagreements within the opposition.
Can I give information?
Very briefly.
Actually, even when we were in this negotiation, NRM fellas had informed us that actually, when we put to the whole house, they will vote CP or JEMA, even if we leave it to them.
All right, okay. Before we go for the call, let's hear from Mr. Denis Namara, faithfully on the line, chairman of the NRM Youth League. Mr. Namara, you're still with us, are you?
Yeah, thank you, Namara.
Yeah, where do we go from here? The NRM is taking advantage, very, very unfairly, some people think.
I don't agree with my colleagues about that. I was that the rules they put, and I'm sorry, I refuse to participate. I remember the opposition boycotted when there is so putting those rules. However, it is extremely important to look at the treaty itself. You know, I was telling people that when interpreting the treaty, you don't look only at the issue of political parties, because the treaty is clear.
Well, but the treaty put the political parties first before shades of opinion.
No, it does not matter which one comes first.
It matters.
Oh, well, okay. Let's hear from the listeners. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. Our numbers 0414 348 111, 0312 260 390, 0312 261 390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Where the lines are still being resolved, there is an issue there. Mr. Namara, let's continue with your own interpretation. You keep going around in circles, it seems. Okay. All right, let's hear from you. Well, the lines are still being...
Actually,
interpret that article.
Actually, it is very interesting. Article 52, for the benefit of our listeners, it reads as follows.
Yes.
That the National Assembly of each partner state shall elect not from among its members. The meaning of it is that we sitting members of parliament, we are excluded. Non-members of the assembly, I mean there must be 9. Who shall represent? The word shall is mandatory.
Yes.
In as much as feasible, meaning that the word feasible qualifies the mandatory and now it's no longer mandatory.
Yes.
What does this mean? That today there are 9 slots were 6 parties, so it is feasible. It is mandatory that the 6 political parties within the house must be represented.
Okay, let's take the listeners' call. Yes, you're live on Spectrum. Your name?
I'm
Martin, yes. Spectrum, hello. Hello.
Hello, Edmond.
Yes, sir, your name?
I'm calling
Mr. W, yes. Question. Spectrum, hello. Good evening, sir. Your name?
My name is Mwiru.
Final caller tonight. Spectrum, hello. Okay, let's get back to the studio. Mr. Opoka.
Yes.
Size doesn't matter.
Well, I think you just made the point, and I think it is very important that size really didn't matter. You've got Kenya with such a large population, and
Broad with a tiny one.
Broad with a tiny one.
And
They still all 9. So I think that really cements the argument of the interpretation that is being given to Article 50. But I want to, this second question by somebody who said, should the army also be represented? When we had the first delegation from Uganda, we had Captain Dudu.
Yes.
That was an army man. So, and he used to campaign come, salute everybody there. So the army is part of, is represented in parliament. Any army person who is interested in going to EALA could go and campaign, like Captain Dodo did. Any special interest group, disabled person, could go and campaign. The youth have been campaigning. So I don't see why the army could be excluded. They are represented in parliament. Thank you.
Honorable Mwiru.
Thank you. I think I would like to thank Martin. Then too, there is my friend Damlida asked a very pertinent question. Actually, this is the confusion where even actually I've seen lawyers, those from NRM side, when they go to that, they just keep quiet. They fear to come out and then give a position. As a lawyer, we have rules which are supposed to interpret documents and treaty. And one of the rule is what they call the judice generis rule. That when you are interpreting these words and they are listed in this order, the way they are listed matters. That's why they said it was political parties, shades of opinion, and other interest groups. What does this mean?
Three things. One, political parties,
shades of opinion, and other interest groups. Meaning that the incidentals must follow within the first one. So when a political party has a slot, it must take into consideration gender, and then other aspects, in as much as it is feasible. So when our colleagues start asking into those questions, of course it takes us back into circles. That would have been solved by the interpretation had the Attorney General been honest and then went to Arusha for an interpretation. Lastly, I've been hearing my friend Owere before even I came to Parliament. Of course, I know he's a regular in terms of calling. You see, for us, in as far as this treaty is concerned, we're interpreting what was put in the treaty. Actually, there's a treaty which talks about political parties. For him to deal with that, he must first go back to Arusha, they amend Article 50 of the treaty so that they go away with it. So when you're talking about treaty, when you're talking about unity, do you do what actually is happening? Because if you got the hazard of parliament, our colleagues lowered our debates in part to be too cheap. When we turn up and say, please, we are fed up of that English of yours. We have the number, who will win. Speaker, put the matter to a vote. So what are we saying? That if you want unity, you promote consensus. You get the point? You promote engagement. We are telling our colleagues that look, this is not about numbers. Actually, court has pronounced itself on the question of numbers. Martin has made the point. In terms of population, we don't have the same population like Kenya. We don't have the same as Burundi, but we have the same slot. It's about the country, it's about treaty, it's about the platforms of these political parties. That is the purpose of this. So it is very wrong for anybody to assume. Of course, like I know I've had my colleague in Namara who was online. When I met him today on the entrance of Parliament, he told me he was asking for my vote to run as an independent. So, of course, for them, they know that even if they take the 6, they must claim the 1 because of that now.
Oh, NRM is not satisfied.
Yes, no, it's not satisfied. Maybe should give them more than 1.
Maybe should give them more than 9.
That's what we are saying. We are here to say these principles very correct, categorically correct. So, we shall not mind that they have gone ahead and elected. For instance, I have a lot of respect for the Speaker of Parliament, and I'll give one insight. When the Speaker made the proposal, some point and actually rubbished what the Speaker had done, because actually they had their own internal NRM issues. The Speaker of Parliament was promoting engagement over these matters. Then later, all of a sudden, they were pushing, take all these slots. What are we saying? Let them take these slots. We shall go to court. We shall get justice, irrespective of when. Actually, very interesting. Article 38. Maybe I should read for the benefit of our listener.
Yes.
It says that, let me read for the benefit of our they say that any dispute concerning the interpretation of application of this treaty or any of the matters referred to the court pursuant to this chapter shall not be subject to any method of settlement other than those provided for in this treaty. Then tab 2, where a dispute has been referred to the council or the court, the partner state shall refrain from any action which might be detrimental to the resolution of the dispute or might aggravate the dispute. What is the meaning of this? That as we go to court, the East African Assembly shall not receive our members until we have disposed of our matter. So it serves them no purpose to rush and elect and say, look, we have our members. That will be subject to the outcome of the court ruling.
How soon do we expect that?
Of course, we have been actually frustrated by Parliament. We have asked for the proceedings of that particular of the days when we dealt. Up to now, we have not got them. But in as far, because they must elect, they must be swearing in. We are within time.
Yes.
That we shall anytime we shall get these proceedings.
Right.
We shall go to court, and actually we shall bring a halt to the process which are taking place.
Right.
So to our colleagues about doing it the NRM style, that you move very fast. You have the election. They take us into
dribble politics.
But the advantage of this treaty, that once a party goes to court, everything is put to stop. You can proceed and then elect in Uganda, but this will not be received in Arusha.
Right.
That's all what we are saying.
So how's it likely to end for an average person?
Actually, as we said it before, I'll talk for FDC.
Yes.
The NRM was offering us 2 slots.
And you said no.
We said, look, this is about the treaty.
Principle.
So the way it will end, in as long as these political parties are represented, that's why we're arguing that let each first political party first get. One goes to the independent, the remaining 2. Government NRM takes 1 as a ruling party, and the opposition takes 1 as the official opposition in parliament. Those were our argument. Our best of our.
How many?
NRM takes 1.
Yes.
Of the remaining 1, after getting the first one,
the NRM gets 2.
NRM now would get 2. FDC 2. But the premise of NRM getting another one would be because of the ruling party, and then the FDC would get it as the official opposition in parliament.
So you're saying NRM gets 3 basically in the end.
They will do,
and then 1 for the other.
Even including the other independent.
All right.
Because nowadays they have been working better to get it.
Thank you very much, dear guest. Honorable Paul Mwiru, Jinja Municipality MP from the FDC. Thank you for coming. Spectrum. Mr. Chris Opoka, Okumu, contestant for the East African Legislative Assembly for the Uganda People's Congress. And Mr. Denis Namara, who joined us from online, is from the NRM Youth Leagues, talking to us in colors. Thank you very much for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. Kizito. Spectrum will return tomorrow. Up next is the news in English.
You can pay, you can buy, pay your bills, pay school fees.